achieved and so on, and then we're going to have a couple of questions for our house.
Sure.
Okay.
I'd like to thank Janet and the Carolina Patriots for allowing me to speak here this evening. It's always a privilege to be able to spread my message in forums with fellow conservatives just like this one. Before I begin, even though Janet already has, I'd like to acknowledge a few people who are here tonight. My mother, DiSabato, and my beautiful fiancée, Laura Luce. And let me tell you, folks, she is as beautiful on the inside as she is on the outside. I would also just like to take a minute to thank them and thank Carrie and Mike's daughter who are here as well as all the other candidates, spouses, and family members. And many times, this political game can be more difficult on them than it is on us and the candidates, and I think that they all deserve a round of applause for putting up with it. Now, when Mike and I ran against each other 2 years ago, we were each accused of having run negative campaigns. And I'm sure he would agree, neither of us wish to run a negative campaign this time around. I will not make any personal attacks on Mike, and I would prefer if we could stick to the issues and the facts, which is what I intend to do tonight. When we both ran last time, we were both new to this game. Neither of us had held office before. We were forced to run on ideas alone, and neither one of us had any records that we can point to at the time. Since Mike won the election, we now have the benefit of seeing what he has been able to do over the past 2 years, and quite frankly, hold him accountable for the things that he has not done so well. Drawing attention to his record and comparing how I would do things differently is not negative campaigning, but precisely what a campaign should be. Holding an incumbent accountable for his record of service and comparing and contrasting the ideas of the challenger to that record. I'm not only going to discuss some of the things that Mike has done that I find alarming, but I'm also going to explain what I would do differently and what I would like to do in addition. If I were in Mike's position, I would be very concerned about my SC Club for Growth School. As we all know, that organization ranks legislators based on key votes to help people understand who is a friend to the taxpayer and who is not. Mike has the lowest score of any member in our delegation. He has the third lowest score of any Republican in the State House. For a candidate who ran on a platform of accountability, transparency, and the elimination of waste in Columbia, I don't think that's acceptable. I can make you this promise. If you place your trust in me, and I don't receive the highest score of any member of our delegation in 2 years, I won't come back to this organization asking for their support. One of the reasons he received such a low score was because he voted to override very many of Governor Haley's wasteful spending vetoes. Just taking a look at a handful of them shows us that he voted to support roughly $2,963,000 in pork and special interest projects, none of which benefited Horry County. There's just a few that I'd like to refer to. There was a veto, an override of a veto to Barnwell County Courthouse, which cost $100,000. I believe that's the county's responsibility. There was an override of a veto for outreach funds to the state legislature of $200,000. And an example of that is hunting and fishing trips for legislators. There was $1 million voted for a cultural visitor center, of which Parks and Recreation Committee never sought those funds out. There's just a few of them here, and there's more. You can look up his record and see what they are. I can assure you that I would not have voted this way. As a conservative, I would support the governor in her efforts to eliminate waste in Columbia, not spend your tax dollars unnecessarily. The governor simply cannot count on him to help eliminate waste, but she can count on me. Infrastructure is our #1 priority, not just in our district, but amongst the county as a whole. I have heard Mike tout projects recently indicating that he found funding to widen US 501 southbound towards Myrtle Beach. The fact is that while he defunded some other projects on the GSATS list, he pushed the project of 501 widening from 2016 to 2020. I would not allow this to happen. I would fight to ensure that the necessary road projects that we need are not only funded, but also not delayed. I would use this seat as a bully pulpit over the county council and let them know that if they want me to go to bat to support them for local funding, that they need to start delivering on some of the promises that they've given to the constituents that I hope to serve. Promises like International Boulevard and turn lanes on Highway 90, to name a few. Speaking of government funding, as you may not know, the SC Code requires that legislature to fund local municipal governments like Horry County by delivering 4.5% of the general fund to municipal governments on a pro rata basis. This law has not been adhered to since 2008. Our legislature, with Mike's help, has decided to table this issue once again. I would not do this. I would support local government funding. I would fight to get back our fair share. We are the fastest growing county in the state, and it won't be long before we are the largest donor county as well. We get very little of that back home where it belongs, and I would stand up to fight to make sure that it does. I want to be clear. This is not the same thing as a liberal asking for more money. There's nothing wrong when a conservative stands up and says, we should get our fair share back. In fact, that is what the conservative message is. This job is not a full-time job. When we have legislators who treat it that way, I believe we are getting away from the concept of citizen representatives. We should never lose sight of the day-to-day problems of business owners and their employees. I will not sell my business if I win this seat. Instead, I will keep it open and commit designating days of that office strictly to constituent services. If you have a problem, I want you to know that you will be able to come to my office, know that I'll be there, and that I'll be there to help you with anything that you need. I will have more town halls and legislative surveys amongst the delegation, amongst the constituents. I live in the district, and to my knowledge, there has not been one town hall in the 2 years that Mike has held this seat. I want your feedback and your input. I want to keep open lines of communication. I want you to have access to me to express your concerns. I am not the type of leader who will ever say, you placed your trust in me because you appreciate my ability to make decisions. Now you need to leave the decision-making to me. When a bill crosses my desk, it's not enough just to read it. But I would also first determine its constitutionality. I would determine the tax burden it places on the constituents, determine whether the benefit of any related spending outweighs that tax burden, and finally, ask the constituency directly how they feel about it. Do they have an objection to it? I will accomplish this by having town halls before session begins, so that I will let them know what's going to be taken up during that session, and town halls during breaks to let them know how things are progressing. Now, Mike personally told me recently, just a few days ago, that he truly loves what he's doing in Columbia. I'm sure he does. Why wouldn't he? He gets an opportunity to steer the course of the state, and there are plenty of perks that go along with the job, I'm sure. But I'm in this for another reason. I'm sure I will enjoy the work as well, but I'm doing this because I love my community and the people who I wish to serve. Anyone who doubts this need only look to my work on a grassroots level at organizations such as the Carolina Forest Civic Association and various public interest groups like this one. I know that I can do a better job than the incumbent. I hope that you can see that as well and will give me your support and your vote on June 10th. Thank you very much.